One day, were Starlight invited by Celestia to Canterlot for some discussions about Twilight's birthday. Since Twilight's birthday was closing in, there was only about maybe a week away from her birthday, and Celestia had been reading to Starlight about the idea that they should probably do some surprise celebration party for Twilight. When she mentioned this in a letter to Starlight, she thought this was in fact a very good idea, and she had even had brought her other friends in this, like Rarity, Applejack, Fluttershy, Rainbow, and Pinky. They had all been pulled into this idea. They were trying to act as they had forgotten about Twilight's birthday, or almost like just try to pretend it was just a normal day. Even Spike had also been informed about this idea, and he was all along with it. Even Luna herself had been informed, and she was also into it. In Canterlot, Celestia and Starlight were talking about more details. Both agreed that Pinky should be the one to mostly be involved in organizing the party. After all, she is the party organizer in Ponyville, so this wouldn't be any problem for at least for Pinky. And that even Applejack had even offered to provide some apples for some of the sweets and desserts at the party that was going to be celebrated in Ponyville. Even all of this planning, Starlight was still not sure if this plan even was going to work, because she did mention this to hesitation to Celestia when they first met at the canton. She said that even though the Twilight is a very bright pony, she is a very smart one. She will probably figure out something is different. If even when she realized that it's her birthday and that most of her friends are pretending is or acting as nothing is, like if something hasn't been different. Even if Twilight will try to give some hint that it's her birthday, but the friends will still try to acting as they don't even get it. Even Celesta did understand Starlight's words about that Twilight might figure out something is different. But Celestia would ensure Starlight that this plan will work. They would do anything as much as possible trying to avoid that Twilight will figure out, or at least give us some hints that something is up. Starlight wanted to get some more details about things that Celestia and Luna had in mind for the party, like if they had any ideas for what kind of party if they had any ideas for the party to be like, so that she could get them those ideas back to Pinky, so that she can organize it after that particular suggestions. Even though Celestia and Luna did have in fact been talking about some ideas they had, so Celestia did at least told Starlight some about his ideas, and even after figure out at least thinking about some of the ideas, and Starlight thought they were in fact good ideas, like some party games and a huge cake and a lot of ponies, but there was something else that came to her mind. Twilight's family. They haven't even been informed yet, or at least by her. But when she mentioned this, though, to Celestia, Celestia did mention she had already taken care of that. Her parents, who still lives in Canterlot, were along with it. Even Shining Armor, Cadence was also had been informed, and they agreed. So everything was going to be acting as normal. Starlight wanted to know more about the things that some details about this party for Twilight. Even though Celestia and Starlight talked a lot about it, they in fact spent almost an entire afternoon, to almost like into the evening, talking about this plans and ideas they had for Twilight's party, and they really wanted to make this special. And they actually didn't realize they were have been talking for hours without realizing it. One of the servants actually came to Celestia's personal room and asked and told her that dinner is served. That was in fact the same moment when Celestia and Starlight realized they had been talking for hours without even realizing it. Though even it was dark outside, Celestia had asked if Starlight wanted to be spend the night at the castle before going back tomorrow, and she said yes. So at dinner, they still talked about these ideas they had for the party for Twilight. Later, though, Celestia went back to her own room, and Starlight was still walking around, and she, in fact, she ended up in the castle garden, where she's just sitting down and just look at the sky, and she was really curious to know how Twilight's reaction would be for this party. But then when she heard a voice behind her, "Excuse me, are you lost?" And she turned around and saw it was in fact a night guard. And she said, "No, I'm just sitting here, just watching the sky and enjoying the night. Aren't you, are you a bat pony?" And then he just nodded and said, "Yes, I'm a night guard and my name is Nighthawk. And I assume you're Starlight Glimmer that I heard about?" She nodded, and she then asked if maybe he wanted to just join her for a moment. Even though he's on his duty, he said he wouldn't mind, so he walked up to her, sat down, and at first was silent. But then she asked him how he likes to be a royal guard, especially a night guard. And he said that he in fact likes to be a night guard. And that not only to be that, not only to be one of protecting the princesses, but at the same time, but this wasn't something that he really impressed the light to do. Even this meeting between Nighthawk and Starlight was really something very unique because they actually start talking about different topics, like what they like to do on their spare time, and Starlight mentioned that she loved to practice magic, but what she do like to do most is reading, daring do book, perhaps sometimes with her friends or just alone. And that is in fact something Nighthawk do in fact enjoy himself. In fact, he said that he was recently had been reading the most newest, the most latest daring do book. They start talking about that book series. It is that particular book they were both talking about. They talked about some of the most and how much far in the book they have been reading. It turns out they have almost been had been reading as much in the book them together. They have been almost reading about half of the book so far, each of them. And they were talking about some of the previous chapters, like some of the what they thought about who could be the bad guy or what could happen, something like that. And they even talked about almost they even talked about some other books before that one, some older daring do books. Like they talked about some of the bad guys, what they thought what could have been, who could have been perhaps even better if they made some different, something like that. Even when the Starlight told her that she maybe thinks that daring do might maybe find something very very precious artifact that may look like something like crystal heart or something like that. That made Nighthawk laugh a bit and said, "Yeah, that would be something. Unless if she took the heart from the Crystal Empire." Yeah, that would been bad though. At least since the Crystal Empire needs the Crystal Heart. Yeah, that's right. But then he said that he had to go because he was on his duty, and she thought maybe that they could perhaps see together tomorrow before she goes back to back to Ptolemy. And since he only adds an active service at night, so he said, "Yes, why not? I mean, I have no duty I'm not in the service at through the day, so I wouldn't mind it. So he said goodbye and left. Even despite this was the very first meeting between Starlight and Nighthawk. She was really, how she could describe it, but he was really polite, very generous, and but most of all, very polite and kind. And he had a great sense of humor. She really didn't know much about him, though. But despite this brief moment of spending time with Nighthawk, she liked him. He could, she could actually see him as a good friend, and she was really happy to see they were have some things in common, though. After that, she went back to her own room, and she quickly fell asleep. Around the next day, just at least about 2 hours before she was about to take the train back to Pune, Starlight was spending some time with Nighthawk. They were just walking around in town, just talking about almost anything, in fact. They talked about some of their personal ideas, what they like to do on their spare times, like that. And then there's something a topic about Twilight's birthday party that's coming up. Nighthawk was aware about his party ideas since he had been hearing about some other guards talking about it. So she asked him how if he had any particular ideas or suggestions what they could maybe do to make the party even better. But from what he told Starlight that some ideas that someone that she only been told from her friends and from Celestia and Luna. But then she asks him if he perhaps would probably want to, if he would like to be invited to the party. After all, they were, since Luna and Celestia was going to be at the party, and also at least or maybe as a couple of guards. And Nighthawk said that he would like that, but he wasn't sure if he was going to be one of the guards going to be going with the princesses to the party. But even if he was going to have a time off from his service that day, Starlight would say that she would invite him as her own personal guest to the party. That was something he was not expecting, but he said he would actually really like that. So for the next 2 hours, they walked around in town, had some ice cream, just talking, spent some more time to get to know each other. But then, unfortunately, she had to go to the train station before the train would leave. And of course, Nighthawk did in fact accompany with her to the station where they said goodbye. But even on her way back home, there was something about Nighthawk that she couldn't even put it. He was really very handsome, very polite, but there was something about him that she couldn't even describe it. He was a bit mysterious, despite that he was a bad pony rather from just a regular pony. But back home in Ponyville, she informed her friends about this idea that Celeste and Luna had, and they all agreed to have to pretend to be as a normal day. So for the next couple of days, things between Starlight and her friends, especially Twilight, was just normal. Even when Twilight did mention about her birthday is coming up soon and that she really hoped that it would be a great party, and or at least she would probably just have to celebrate with her friends and something like that. And Starlight acted that she didn't actually didn't hear it, acted that she heard about it and said, "Yeah, that sounds about right." That, but then a week later, on the day when birthday came, all of the Starlight had left the castle quite early in the morning, around almost like 6 a.m. She walked around in town to some of her dear friends where they lived, telling them that today it was Twilight's birthday and they needed to act like they didn't, as they were just a normal day, that they had to remember the plan. And they all agreed to do that. So the rest of the during the day, when Twilight was walking around with Spike to get some supplies, maybe some food, or just walking around, they encounter like Rarity, Pinkie Pie, They tried to act as they were just a normal day, even when Twilight did get away some hints that it was in fact her birthday, but it was nothing. And in fact, she didn't even get any cards or any letters from her parents or her brother or Cadence on her birthday. She thought maybe that they had forgot about her birthday. After all, since for recently there had been a lot of things going on. Like, since there had been a lot of events had been taking place, like Crystal Empire's party for Flurry Horror, just like that. But it wasn't until later that afternoon, when Twilight returned back to the castle, when she found it was quite different. She heard some sounds in the library, so she went in there and finds it's dark. Even Spike was not well with her because he said he had to go back to the castle to do some things back home. So suddenly, the light was turned on. All her friends just stood there and screamed, "Happy birthday, Twilight!" And along with the family, she was just shocked. She didn't. She said that she literally said, "I thought you all forgot about my own birthday." But Starlight walked up to her to Twilight and said, "No, why would we do that?" She was really just. This was something we all had planned for over a week. We wanted to do a surprise birthday party for you, Twilight. And Celestia smiled and said, "Yeah, we all were on it these days." And during the party, though, Starlight was really happy to see that Twilight had such a great time. And something did happen. Because during when she was having some, when Starlight was having something to drink, when she found some pony poking her from behind, she turned around and saw Nighthawk. Nighthawk was in fact did came to the party, but he wasn't even there when the others arrived. When she asked him about it, he said that he just arrived at the castle. He was sorry that he was a bit late, but she was just didn't mind because the party hasn't been on that long, maybe for at least 10 minutes or so. But she was happy that he came. So they spent the rest of the evening together just having a good time, watching them trying to open up gifts and even have some good food together. Later that afternoon, that late evening, Celestia Luna went back to the Canterlot with the guards except for Nighthawk. Since Nighthawk in fact had a time off from his guard duties, so had he been asked if he could stay behind for at least for about a day so that he wanted to explore Ponyville for a bit more. After all, it isn't that often he'd be able to get off from his work duties. And Celestia agreed. So rest of that evening, after all the others had already went to bed around maybe as 10 p.m., Starlight was still up in the library with Nighthawk. They were just talking and having something to eat. But then something that Starlight didn't expect. Nighthawk admitted that he actually wanted to tell her something. He told her that he thought that she was very beautiful and he asked her if she wanted maybe to go out with him. But he also said that he understands if she doesn't want to go out with him. But she in fact said yes. She would like that. And they didn't mind that. The rest of the evening, they just sat there, they sat in the library, just having good conversation. But the next day, though, they decided to have their first date. They wanted They packed us a small picnic basket and went outside town for have some picnic. There were a lot of things that they have a good talk about. They talked most about their personal interests, on their hobbies, and even when Starla did mention about some of her bad past, when she had literally brainwashed the village where she used to live before she came to Pullman. Even though when Nighthawk heard about this, but he said, that happened in the past. What's happened in the past is in the past. We are all moved on, and I see that you are really had moved on. You had made a lot of great friends, and having you seen you working as the counselor at the School of Friendship. That is a good accomplishment if you're from your past life. And Starlight agreed with him. She could even expect from that though. But they actually really had a great time on the first date. Starlight really admit that she hasn't had this great time with any opponent for a long time. But despite she has a lot of her friends, but she hasn't been on any date for like ever. This was in fact her very first date she ever had been on, and she did tell Nighthawk about that. And Nighthawk said that he hasn't been on a date for a very long time either. Not even since he became a night guard at the Castle of Canterlot. Before then, before he joined to be the Royal Guard, he had more. He actually had a girlfriend back then, but they broke up long before he even joined the Royal Guards. But even during this time, though, he said that he'd mentioned that he had been feeling lonely, but when he first met Starlight, there was something about her that sparked an interest. He wanted to get to know her a bit better to see maybe this could be a new friendship at least. And even despite it's just a normal friendship, but it's something else sparked between them. That he in fact has started to like her more as a friend. And now they were on a first date, he was in fact very open about this. He was really open about telling her that he really trusted her, really liked her very much more than anything. She was really admit to that. She was blushing when he was telling her all of it. But then, she'd mentioned that even that despite his night guard, they may not be able to see each other so often. But he mentioned that they might be able to see each other more often because he only serves at night as a guard. But most of the time he sleeps during at least for a couple of hours at the daytime. But even when he had brought his idea from having a permission leave from his duties to maybe for a week or so, and she would have liked that. But she wasn't even sure if Celestia and Luna would grant him that so often, which he made it, which he totally understand. But they were trying to work it out. She said that she could go see him as often as she could also during the weekends or looks like when summer vacation has taken place. That is something they both agreed to. So they decided to be an officially couple. At first, though, it was quite a rocky time because since that the summer wasn't in for another few months, and that since Starlight was in counselor of the School of Friendship, and that she can only see him sometimes on the weekends. But since that he sometimes works all night, and even sometimes he had to work a double shift, even daytime. So that was sometimes impossible for them to even to see each other. But as when summer did arrive, they actually managed to get a lot more time. Since the school of friendship was closed for the summer, Starlight decided to go to Canterlot. She stayed at the castle by asking Celestia and Luna if it was possible that she could stay at the castle for a long time, for maybe for a week or two, so that she could spend time with her boyfriend Nighthawk. They didn't mind that. In fact, they encouraged her to stay there as long as she wanted, so that she could spend time with her boyfriend. Even after summer vacation was over, Nighthawk had even requested from Celestia if he could have 1 week of her permission leave so that he could go to Ponyville, and she granted that. And even through all this time that they can sometimes see each other maybe for a week or maybe for a couple of days in each week. The, this relationship would have been a lot of rocky times, but they always worked it out. They always made sure that it was time that they could spend each other. There were a lot of time when they wouldn't been able to see each other. But the relationship between Starlight and Nighthawk remained such a strong bond. Even when Starlight's own father found out about she was dating a night guard, he was really impressed how about her boyfriend's duties actually. But when he found out it was in fact a bad pony, that surprised him even more. But he was still very supportive and happy to see that his daughter was dating some pony that she really cared about. He had even said to her that her mother would have been very, very happy to see that her daughter is may have found her true love. He'd even mentioned this that when he was young, around Starlight's age, when he first dating Starlight's mother, he loved her more than anything, and he still misses her even to this day when she passed away several years ago. Sometimes after Starlight left the village, her hometown. Even the first meeting between Starlight's father and Nighthawk, when they went to Starlight's hometown, there were a lot of tension between Starlight and Nighthawk because she wasn't even sure if Nighthawk would be accepted really that much because they were both really intense to this, but it was for nothing because during the first meeting there was in fact only about a week or 2 weeks before, because 2 weeks before earlier Starlight had mentioned this to her father as she was dating. And at the time when he found out, when he was really surprised about that, and when they came to her hometown with along with Nighthawk to be the first official meeting with Starlight's father, they were really surprised that they were also really surprised or even just nervous if this that the first meeting would be going as well as they hoped. But it did, in fact. The first meeting between Starlight's father and Nighthawk went perfectly. And in fact, they had such much great common sense. They had a lot of common ground between them. They loved to talk to almost anything. Turned out that Starlight's father had some interest in astronomy, and Nighthawk also had some interest in astronomy, and they could talk about that for hours. And Starlight was just happy to see at least that they both have bonded over something that they both like to talk about. But the relationship between Starlight and Nighthawk only grew stronger from that point. Even after they had been together for nearly 5 years, Nighthawk had been such hope to one day to be married with Starlight. Because on the fifth anniversary, he even proposed to her. And she said yes. She could even be more happy for that. She really was happy. But when done one day, even the only few days after the proposal, he was told to by Nighthawk he had been transferred from Camelot to Ponyville to serve Twilight's first royal guard. And when she heard about it, she was very surprised, just happy to death. Now they will be able to live together. They decided to have their wedding at Sweet Apple Acres. They invited all their friends, even Solid's family and even Nighthawk's family from back home. It was a big party, after all also. Every pony has such great time. Even when during the ceremony first, when Starlight was quite nervous how she was really nervous how these things would react or turned out. But it was all pointless because she was told by Twilight to relax, it will be okay. And she was right. And in fact, they later went to Las Pegasus on their honeymoon for a whole week, and they both had such great time there. But then, just barely 3 years later, Starlight announced to both families and friends they were expecting their first baby within the next few months. And when her father was told, he was really excited. And it turned out that they were expecting a daughter. And she was really happy to see that her daughter was in fact a bad pony hybrid. And she was really happy to see it been holding her own daughter in her own hooves. But then, only 3 years later, they in fact had a boy. And he was in fact a unicorn like his own mother. Both Starlight and Nighthawk was really happy to have a family and to be with the one they loved the most of all. But it was something else though, because Starlight was really happy that she met Nighthawk at the Canterlot Castle's garden all those years ago. Because if she had even been at the castle garden, she may not have even encountered Nighthawk at all, and may not even have found her true soulmate at all. Even Nighthawk has been told about this, and he agreed. If she wasn't even at the party, if she wasn't at the garden, she may not have even met him. And that even had meant that she would not have even invited him to the party. And all of this would never have happened. But she was really, really happy that it did happen. And for that, she was very grateful that she was at the garden at the right time, at the right moment, when Nighthawk did arrive to the garden himself. And for that, he was really grateful to have such amazing, beautiful wife in his life. And this is how Nighthawk and Starlight Glimmer, for a true love, got a big family together. The end.